Hi guys, my name is Timothy and it's amazing to be part of this conversation, Voices of a Generation. Shout out to Pastor Agu, this is an amazing project. And I think the first thing I would start off with saying is this has to be more than a conversation. It's all well and good that we're having this conversation. It's great that we are for the first time really talking about this, great. But the thing with conversations is at some point they stop. And we need to get to a point where this stops, but at the end of the day, we are happy with the outcome. We have to get to a point where our children don't have to have this conversation. The generations after us don't have to keep talking about this. And I really hope that as we listen to these videos, as we're all trying to do our bit, that we will really seek an outcome that we're all happy with. So I work in HR. And I've done so for many years now, and it's interesting because I sit on the other side of the fence, and so I'm the one who has a team who does the contracts, the offer letters. I do interviews. I probably do about close to 50 to 100 interviews a year, and the one thing that is really interesting is people do not ask questions, and I'll talk about that in a bit more detail, but it's interesting sitting on this side of the fence. Now working in HR, I think it was in 1965, with a few amendments in 1968, that the Race Relations Act was passed in the UK. So that's not too long ago, it's not too long ago, but at the same time, it's enough time for us to make sure that behaviours have changed. And not only that, there was further changes in 2010, which meant that it was discriminatory for anyone to be, for any employer to discriminate against someone based on their race. But why is it that we still have these sort of snippets? It's unconscious bias, it's the sly comments about our hair, it's the comments about our skin tone, it's comments about our culture and what we did, and we really have to put a stop to this. And I think one of the things that I have found that's been really useful is calling things out. I don't appreciate that, I don't like that. And going to meet someone in a way that is, of course, polite and everything, but calling it out and not accepting it. And certainly for me, I accepted it for a long time, and it got to a point in not just my career, but definitely in my life as an adult, that I said, I'm not going to accept this. And so whenever I see something, no matter how covert it is or how that was racist, but not really, I call it out. Whatever you want to call it, I call it out. And although I've not experienced racism that I know of directly to my face, I have had the comments about my hair, I've had the looks, and you're wondering, okay, I'm the only black person here. I went to an all-white school, I'm always the only black person in senior management at work, but I always raise these issues up, and I would encourage all of us, and certainly the one thing I noticed is we don't raise things up, we don't ask the questions, I feel sometimes we are afraid to really have the conversations. Why did you say that? I'd appreciate if you didn't say that. And we need to get bolder with that. And one thing that would empower us and enable us to become bolder is for us to really research and to know policies, procedures, know our rights, know who we are and know whose we are. You have to ask questions about your employment. You have to ask questions from your employer about their policies on certain things, about their procedures and how they go about these things. At interviews, I'm amazed at the fact that I'll have an interview and I'll say, do you have any questions for us? And they'll say, no, I'm fine. I'm like, what? How can you not ask any questions? Or, I will hear that they will ask questions, but they're usually technical questions, not in questions for the employer. And I would really encourage people to research, do your research. If you are working in the UK, you must know the basis or the basics of employment law. Don't be an expert. Of course, I'm not suggesting you be an expert, but do the basics of reading and research so that you're informed, so that you can make decisions, so that you know how to behave, how to act, what to do and what not to do. It's interesting because I try and think about this from a biblical perspective, because this is not a social issue, it's not an economic issue, it's not a political issue, this is spiritual. And I think about the children of Israel, and I'm sure that there was a Hebrew Lives Matter campaign, I'm sure that they had these conversations, But at some point they were tired and they were like, you know what, we're done having these conversations. And what do? They asked God to intervene. And I think that's what we need to do, is to say, God, you know what, we are tired and we need you to intervene. And we need as many voices as possible. We need as many people praying as possible, as many people, you know, banging on the door of heaven to say, God, hear us now, hear our prayer. And that's kind of my prayer, is that people will start to pray for their workplaces. They'll start to pray for their employers. They'll start to pray for institutions, you know, that this will become a daily habit of our prayer, that we put all of these institutions, all of these employers, all of these organizations, all senior management teams, all board levels, you know, we put them before God and ask God to intervene. And then coupled with that and our research and knowing our rights, I really do believe that the conversation will change. But again, it's that change that has to start from us. You know, of course, when you're in a different kind of setting, you have to do things as they would. You know, when they say when you're in Rome, you do as the Romans do. So when you do get into a new organization, you do things, you know, their way, you know, because they all have their own culture. But as much as you have to do things the way Rome, you know, when you're in Rome, behave like Rome, Rome must respect you, you know. So your organization must respect you and take you just as you are, you know. So you don't have to hide the way you do your hair. You don't have to hide the way you talk or how you do your what you wear. You don't have to, you know, hide your hobbies and your interests because you don't think they're going to be accepted. We have to be bold enough to say, this is who I am. We have to remember that we are adopted by God, we're children of God, and that already gives us a step footing, you know, that gives us a privilege already. Keep the conversations going, guys. It was lovely talking to you, but keep the conversations going, but have it in the back of your mind, you want it to be more than a conversation. Take care, guys. God bless. Bye.